Hey listeners, let's talk about revolutionizing your mining operation with Foreman. This isn't your average management tool. It's an all-in-one solution for reducing costs and significantly boosting your revenue. Foreman brings a cutting-edge dashboard to your fingertips, empowering you with automated energy strategies. This means not only curtailing around real-time prices, but also strategically enhancing your profit margins through demand response. It's about leveraging energy efficiency to its fullest potential. With Foreman, you get a system that scales with your business, inventory management for assets, infrastructure integration, and business intelligence. Foreman elevates the cash flow and production of your entire operation. To see how Foreman can redefine your mining operation standards, visit foreman.mn. With Foreman, you're not just managing a mining operation, you're setting a new standard in the industry.
Accelerated by Compass is the premier accelerator program for Bitcoin mining sites at any stage of development. Our managed services provide expert guidance in site procurement, construction, energy agreements, and mining operations. Compass helps clients meet timelines and expectations for operational excellence, from greenfield to retrofits and everything in between. Don't just mine, excel. Visit compassmining.io now to discover how Accelerated by Compass can power your success.
Are you a retail or institutional investor interested in Bitcoin mining companies? The Miner Mag brings you free data and analysis from all major NASDAQ-listed Bitcoin mining operations to know who stands out. Check out visualized metrics and data-dependent stories at theminermag.com. Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod. We got Matt Lustow of Giga on the show today to discuss, lots of different infrastructure parts for Bitcoin mining in the field, from containerized modular solutions all the way to transformers, sourcing, and supply chains. Stick around. Before we get into it, thank you to CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner, and Foreman Mining, Master Mining for being the lead sponsors of the Mining Pod. You'll hear a little bit more from both these sponsors during the show. Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod. Today we're joined by a familiar face, Matt Lustow, now at Giga. Matt, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be back here.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of changes last year. You're now in operations at Giga. You're the VP of Ops. So let's just start there. Like, what does that mean? What are you doing differently at Giga? And then for the show, for listeners, we're talking all things like supply chains, finding infrastructure, sourcing infrastructure, how to do it well. So I think this is a really good show for operators out there. But back to the first question, what's new with you?
A little bit of everything. I mean, the last time I was on here, I was doing BD for Luxor in the firmware team. So I found an opportunity late last year where Matt Lustow came calling, and the background intersection of oil and gas engineering, Bitcoin mining, all that stuff. It was kind of a match made in heaven. So I made the decision to leave Luxor, but I still talk to those guys pretty much weekly. It's an awesome team, and I'm happy to have them as part of my my resume, but also just my friend group. There's a lot of people that have a lot of good information over there, so hats off to them. But since joining Giga, I'm now responsible for actually operating the miners that I was previously trying to pitch firmware to. So it's a little bit of a different, not a little bit. It's actually a very different exercise in the day to day, week to week, and all that good stuff. So yeah, we've got about 10 megawatts off grid in Texas. We've got 16 megawatts on grid, one site in Oklahoma, and we're looking to grow pretty much everything. So trying to keep miners running, trying to keep technicians in the right places and generators on and all that good stuff. So it's a full plate for sure. And then every now and then, like last week, going to Miami to check out the biz dev scene for a week or so every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's pretty nuts. There's some cool stuff there as well. The site operations for Giga, I see lots of cool photos and videos, you guys deploying stuff. So like, what do you guys have out in the field at the moment? It's at 10 megawatts?
Yeah, about 10 megawatts. We have 3 generators in Crockett, Texas, running all Giga boxes, and a site near College Station and a site near Texarkana, so East Texas. That's a bit up there. That's really kind of like the origin story of Giga. It's our legacy there, and yeah, so it's a exciting part of the business, but we're also growing in a lot of other ways.
How much does like self mining in the future for Giga? Because I know you guys have some operations up overseas you've been talking with. A lot of the stuff is just like photos because you guys are a private company, so you don't have all the juicy data. You get upcodes, but stuff like Brent over like overseas and the Middle East, South America. But yeah.
Yes. So we're exploring opportunities everywhere. We're actively negotiating sites in North America. And so mining is definitely something that is in Giga's future, and we're going to keep pursuing that. We're also pursuing infrastructure. So whether it's high voltage substations to PDUs in a gigabox, we can pretty much source anything for you. And it's one of the really cool things that actually got me really excited about Giga, because mining Bitcoin is hard enough as it is. When you throw in the off-grid power generation and all that stuff, it's a pretty risky business proposal. But when I started talking to Matt and even Mario Gutierrez, our VP of BizDev, they kind of opened my eyes to this entirely separate section of the business. Well, I wouldn't say separate, actually. This other section of the business that is entirely related to operations, but not obvious to many people out there, and that's the products we supply. We took all of the lessons learned from the legacy business of off-grid mining and rolled all of those into improved features and functionality in the infrastructure that we provide. So when any of the big guys out there come to us, they know that we've stubbed our toes on all of the things here and there about our boxes, our transformers, our PDUs. We've stubbed our toes there. We've made those mistakes, and we've rolled improvements into it. So you're already starting at a very high quality product when it comes to mining infrastructure.
Gotcha. Okay, that's an interesting take. One thing you and I talked about, I think it was in Miami, maybe it was just texting beforehand, was like there was a lot of container manufacturers popping up in 2020 and 2021, and a lot of them are not here anymore. And I was interested in talking with you a little bit about like surviving that bear market, that crypto winter where a lot of these container manufacturers had to go out of business. So that's a good touch point. We'll get back to that in a second. In terms of like different products that you guys offer, I've seen a lot. So you guys have like some of the immersion builds that look really cool, and those seem to work with like the micro BT, like blade mining, where you can kind of like more like a cabinet miner. You slide in like your new immersion set, and then you guys have like the engines that you also fix and then deploy onto the field. I've seen that at the Giga site down in outside Houston. That was pretty cool to kind of see firsthand. So walk me through a little bit of the product lineup, and then I'm going to follow up with some questions about how you guys do some sourcing on those things.
Yeah, so our product offering, like I said, is high voltage substation transformers, pad mount transformers. I mean, if you want pole mount transformers, we can do that as well. That's kind of it's not my day-to-day life, but it's becoming a more present thing as we look at other on-grid opportunities. So the transformers is a real and growing part of our business that we're really excited about. Besides that, the mining infrastructure is where I think we have the most to provide value to a customer in the mining space. So we have air-cooled boxes where we can support whatever profile you want. We're working with everyone in the industry to make sure that we have the right profile of the miner, because obviously you need a good seal between your hot and cold aisle. So that's one of the customizable features, and then getting the spacing right, getting the amperage and everything dialed in for the specific model that everyone wants to run, because Bitmain doesn't like to make it easy on anyone when it comes to form factors or anything like that. So yeah, we've got the air-cooled solution where we can work with clients pretty quickly. We've got 20-foot, 40-foot, and 53-foot solutions ranging from like 180 miners all the way up to 400 and something miners. So that's one of the things that, like I said, that's the first product that is like the most fine-tuned option that we have, because we've done it for so long. Like that's part of the DNA at Giga. Lots of iterations there, and we're constantly iterating, whether it's moving network switches to make it more accessible, you name it. We're always working to improve our product.
Love it. So from a transformer perspective, let's talk about that. So my understanding is like you guys have good sourcing internationally, so you're able to bring these transformers in. That's sort of like the ARB play from a business perspective. How do you guys go about like sourcing these things overseas? And then let's talk about the market here in the US, or I guess probably North America, or maybe you guys ship overseas once again. But from the sourcing side, how do you guys go about that?
It all stemmed from the air-cooled boxes. So like Shiv, our chief product officer, he got an order, I think it was in 2023, where he kind of looked at our facilities in Texas, and he looked at the order, and he said, there's no way we can actually get this done in time. So he took the initiative, jumped on some communications channels, found an opportunity in China. He's established an office in Shanghai, so we've got about 15 full-time employees in Shanghai.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really big operation. That's the thing that, like I said, when I started talking to Mario and Matt about what Giga is now versus what everyone thought of Giga as, like, we're doing really impressive stuff in ways that most people aren't aware. So when we built out the air cooled product line in China to support, I mean, like, just some numbers for you. We have 800 megawatts sold total, 600 megawatts this year sold.
Dang.
So yeah, when we built out that product line in China, that gave us the opportunity to identify good suppliers, bad suppliers, people we wanted to work with, how to develop relationships over there, how to develop all the supply chain that's needed to fit into the somewhat niche element of Bitcoin mining that is lead times. Like, that's one of the things where we can shine very quickly, because most people you go to and say, oh, I want a transformer. Yeah, okay, that'll be like 6 months. And we're like, we can do that in like 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So we know what most Bitcoin miners are dealing with when it comes to time frames. So it gives us a chance to really excel and offer a product that not everyone is able to do.
One thing I've heard consistently over the years is that, Bitcoin miners need different sort of transformers than a lot of the other parts of the industry. And I want to get confirmation on that a little bit more and more knowledge on that. So that's been one thing where I've heard Bitcoin miners haven't had as many issues with supply chains compared to other parts of the electrical market or utility market, because they're using different transformers, which means they can kind of have a slightly separate way of getting units in for their supply chain. Can you confirm that? And if that is true, can you kind of walk that out a little bit, what Bitcoin miners want from a transformer perspective? And if that's wrong, feel free to correct me and then tell me a little bit more about this transformer market.
The biggest difference I would say for Bitcoin miners is honestly probably that lead time. Now, regionally speaking, transformers can vary greatly. So the ability to standardize a transformer for Texas and even regions of Texas versus regions of Oklahoma versus regions of Washington State or whatever, that's where it gets tricky, because you can't just have a standard transformer and go deploy here versus there. And so it gets particular there, whether it's 415 versus 480 volts on your secondary side, what voltage are you getting on your primary? All those variables can make it really difficult to source a transformer in a reasonable lead time for the speed that most Bitcoin miners are trying to operate, because everyone wants to go as quickly as possible because that next halving is coming,
Yeah. 4 years away, but it's happening in a minute here, right? So it feels like it's minor. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've definitely heard that before. We've done some shows with Maddox, some other brands out there that do sort of that infrastructure side as well, and they spoke to that effect. For the immersion side, follow-up question there is when you guys are building out these systems, how do you think about the ASIC provider at the end of the day? And the impetus for that question is I've heard a lot of frustration from container manufacturers where they send something to market and then with S21 they just changed the dimensions on it. They made it bigger and it kind of messes up the whole operation, and people who buy them have to fix them, have to change shelving out or just tweak it. So how do you guys do that from a manufacturing side, make it available for all the major providers?
Well, one of our core values is just speed, and so understanding having really good connections to be able to get dimensions as quickly as possible to resize our shelving and our shrouds on the air-cooled side is a huge factor. And I will clarify one thing. We don't at present offer an immersion solution. We do have direct-to-chip hydro, so Bitmain and WhatsMiner hydro.
So you guys just move fast on that. That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Disrupt with you, and I heard a few people complaining about that, being we just shipped this thing, and now the dimensions are changing. I guess that's just part of being a container manufacturer. You're gonna have to keep dealing with that. Not much you can do.
Yeah. And to be fair, the nice thing about physical dimensions is that once you know them, they are there. They're not changing. Whereas when Bitmain changed a control, just kind of throwing back to my days at Luxor, when Bitmain decided to change a control board, that's potentially a whole new operating system that the firmware team had to learn, reverse engineer, and then implement the firmware solution for. So
Yeah.
Once you know the solutions, it's actually a pretty tight working envelope or design envelope. So it's not as bad as it could be, but it's certainly not ideal when Bitmain says, surprise, this is like 10% bigger now. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, great. Okay, let's go re-engineer everything.
It's so funny they just did that again. I guess it comes down to like you want what's best for the computer, like for the chips themselves, and the fans look bigger as well. Well, they have to be bigger because the whole form factor is different size, but I suppose that just means like a better operating environment for these units on their level. And I guess everyone else in the market just has to catch up with it and figure it out.
In the competitive world of Bitcoin mining, one name stands out: CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner. At CleanSpark, efficiency isn't just a goal, it's our standard. Our sophisticated facilities are built and led by expert teams who care about Bitcoin and the communities we work in. Scale? We've mastered it. Our large-scale operations have set us apart in the industry as examples of community-oriented building. Our track record speaks for itself. We navigate the complexities of the new economy with precision and with skill, continuously achieving operational milestones. Curious about how we do it? We invite you to discover the story behind CleanSpark's success at cleanspark.com.
Okay, let's keep moving along here. Unless you have anything more to add on that part, I'm curious about like what you're seeing in the market for deployments at the moment. Since you're not doing BD anymore, but you're in the operation side of things. You're like operating a lot of machinery at the moment. Are you seeing any sort of deployments move between like air, immersion, or hydro? The reason for that question being we saw last week at WDMS and then at Miami. I keep saying almost Bitcoin Miami at Mining Disrupt that people are pushing a lot of like these field operations for immersion and hydro, like these big containers. Maybe you can throw one up on the screen while you're chatting here as well. There's just like a lot more interest in fully baked out, fully fleshed out solutions for hydro immersion in the field, as opposed to a few years ago where it's mostly just air containers.
Yeah, so our focus is on air and hydro direct chips. So like it's a slightly different. Actually, it's a very different system from immersion, which the immersion prospect is interesting. And I've kind of waffled on this since I really joined the industry. One of my first projects actually before I got in professionally was I started building an immersion tank out of a crawfish pot because I'm from Louisiana that I'd already ruined. I never got it up and running because I eventually started working here and just ran out of all free time. But it's a very different form factor and functionality. And the big, I was honestly a little bit less of a maxi on hydro before joining the team. But now that I've seen the system, I've seen what MicroBT has put together as far as their server is concerned. Like that solution is extremely clean. What's holding Bitmain back is honestly their form factor. Like I'm a mechanical engineer. When I look at that form factor for their hydro solution, there's too many leak paths. Like I don't want external tubing or anything like that can potentially come loose, that can potentially fail. All those things are very concerning for me as a mechanical engineer. When I look at the Bitmain the WhatsMiner Hydro solution, it's got two connections on the backside, and it has the standard 2U server form factor, which makes it super easy to build for, super stackable. Yeah. It's a very well thought out system, and that's one of the things that we identified as a niche to fit into. And so we've already deployed 2 megawatts of our Hydro solution. And one of the things that's actually interesting, you mentioned the containerized solution. That works up to a certain size. At some point, there's eventually a diminishing returns on that containerized concept. And what we've actually started to propose, and we've got some sales on here, is a skidded solution where you have a warehouse. You don't need a roof over every thing. You need one big roof over all the things, and then you have a dry cooler outside. You can pump all your fluid out. So we have a skid solution that allows you to put much more racks in the same amount of space, and then you can arrange it however you want inside of a building or whatever, and then pump the fluid out to cool it. So that's an interesting prospect that, like I said, we've gotten some traction on And I suspect will kind of grow, honestly, because it's more of the traditional server modeling. Like most server farms prior to this, prior to Bitcoin mining, didn't have like a containerized solution. That's just a modular way to deploy something quickly in a remote area. So like there's reasons for it, but I think there's also a limit to it once you hit saturation in the market.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's riff on the Bitmain Immersion Hydro solution. Which one is it? It's a Hydro box, right? So like they have like the little water cooler, like mini, or they like straws coming out.
Yeah, exactly. They look like bendy straws.
Yeah, they do look like bendy straws. I was talking to someone actually about this at WDMS, like a pretty big Bitcoin miner, and they were like, we're just really cautious about deploying that because we're worried like not only do those bendy straws look like a little funky, but like maybe the seals on them aren't that good or some other issues. And then I talked to someone who's deploying those or did deploy those last cycle when they were first announced. I think it was like 21 or 2022. The first iteration of that came out, and they said that's the exact issue they had, is like the seals on those things would pop, and then it's just really manual to go in to fix them. Follow-up context on this is like I've seen the micro BT sort of like cabinet model. We're kind of sliding in and out of drawer, and it looks like there's going to be some similar units like that from Foundation Logic / AlphaPex for like a Litecoin version of it. So it seems like everyone's moving more towards that traditional server design with this as opposed to Bitmain design. So I would love to get more information on why Bitmain decided to build it the way they did with their form factor. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Maybe it was just like the best solution they had at the time.
Anything I have to say there would be pure speculation. And
yeah, we're not allowed it on this podcast. We're totally so if there needs to be that, that's okay.
Let's just say it's a questionable design decision from the start as to why they've stuck it out for a number of models. Another questionable decision, but also infrastructure is sticky. I mean, like there's this old engineering story of like how the size of the rocket booster that took the astronauts to the moon is related to a horse's ass in Rome. Yeah, so it goes through like the width of the roads in Rome eventually determined the width of the rails, and the rails are what took the space shuttle rocket from X to Z. And so like basically it's like, hey, there's this connection between the vehicle that took us to outer space and the width of two horses in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
I guess we can't help but think about the fall of the Roman Empire, huh?
I don't think we've talked about Rome enough on this podcast, to be frank, but I am for it. So maybe that can be like our next segment. I want to talk about like the dry cooler stuff as well. And this is something that is brand new to me, pretty ignorant about it. And for those who aren't super familiar with these solutions, what are the kind of things we see out there in the field for as the dry coolers and wet coolers, where you're having like different ways of like cooling the machines themselves and pumping the fluid outside? So can you kind of walk me through that as if I was a newbie?
Absolutely. So the appeal of a hydro or an immersion cooled system is that you are able to take the heat that's generated by all the chips in each of the miners, and you're able to transfer that to the cooling fluid, which in the case of hydro is usually some mix of deionized water, which just means all of the minerals and everything are stripped out, filtered out, usually distilled or whatever. It's either deionized water or a mix of deionized water and some kind of glycol solution like antifreeze, because everyone thinks about the heat associated with Bitcoin mining. But if you're, let's say, in North Dakota deploying a hydro solution and you curtail or something like that and you freeze up everything, water expands when it freezes. So you could do serious damage. So you don't want it to freeze. And then also you'd be down for an extended period of time, even if it didn't expand. So like there's a number of reasons you want to treat the water to prevent freezing. So you add the heat to this fluid, whether it's deionized water and glycol, or the immersion fluid, which is a dielectric of sorts. I forget all the different chemicals, but it's usually like an olefin, I think. But either way, like there's a number of those chemical companies you'd recognize, whether it's Shell or Dow or Exxon, like all those chemical companies, they make a number of different dielectric fluids that are used throughout the industry. And that absorbs the heat as the immersion fluid is pumped past the ASICs, right? So you've got the heat in this fluid. Great. What do you do with it now? Well, you can't. It'd be really expensive to just go like pump it out onto the ground, and you'd also have like massive environmental implications there. So what you have to do with it is you actually have to pump it through another circuit, which is some kind of cooling circuit. If you look at like the announcement that Marathon just had, they have a plate heat exchanger, which is you're pumping the fluid through the plate. That's too generic. It's a heat exchanger which has plates that allows you to transfer the fluid from the fluid that's touching the miners to another fluid that's usually benign. So it could be like river water that's been treated or something like that, to where you're not risking environmental concerns by putting this dielectric or this glycol into a river, but you're able to transfer the heat into that other flow. So the plate heat exchanger is option one. Another option that many people go with, that's our standard solution, is the dry cooler. Dry cooler is literally what it means. It's dry. There's no other fluid involved, but you're pumping your hot fluid through these radiator coils, and you have a fan. So it's just like the front of your car. When you stop and you have your windows down, you can hear the fan turning, blowing air over the radiator fins, right? That's what a dry cooler is. It's radiator fins with a fan to suck a bunch of air over them. A wet cooler, on the other hand, involves kind of a combination of both, where you've got water flowing over the fins, but you're also pumping the fluid through it. Dry coolers are usually the most common. We've had a client recently that asked for a dry cooler with what's called adiabatic pads. So you actually have a special kind of porous media that you put on the outside of the radiator fins, and you can spray that with water. When you add water to those fins, it increases the heat transfer from the radiator fins into the air, because water sucks up heat really well. And so you get a better cooling effect for the same dry cooler.
Need ASIC help? Check out Vitamine, one of Bitmain's certified repair shops located in Washington State, with satellite offices in Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas. PSUs, hashboards, immersion setups, in and out of warranty repair, Vitamine has you covered. Want to train your technicians? Bring Vitamine to your site for hands-on training in the art of ASIC repair, complete with Bitmain AMTC certification. Contact Vitamine today at dan@vmasic.com. Again, that's dan@vmasic.com. When you think of ASIC repair, think Vitamine. Okay, I know this is not your purview because you're not doing BD anymore, but maybe Mario can give you a thumbs up or thumbs down after he listens to the show on your response here. But if you guys have 600 megawatts in queue for purchases, which I remember you said at the beginning of the show, what are you seeing in terms of people wanting when they have a conversation with Giga? Like, out of all the products we've kind of described so far, they're like, we want this sort of thing. I'm supposing you guys have a fab shop. You guys can kind of build anything, it seems. But what are you seeing these miners who are putting in large orders typically wanting?
So the Giga brand in the Bitcoin Association usually gets people in the door. But a great anecdote is actually I was tearing down the booth at Disrupt, and I looked at the stacks of flyers to see which one was taken the most. Pad mount transformers was gone.
Really?
So that's one of the things. Like I said, people come in the door because they know the Giga brand's cool, young group building Bitcoin mining stuff. But then they recognize, oh, wait, you can do transformers in 8 to 12 weeks. So that's where we're having really big growth. And I have to shout out Eduardo Barbie, our VP of sales, who came over from a transformer company, and he's just killing it. Like he's building his team out to just sling transformers. So if you need transformers, shameless shill. This is kind of a shameless shill altogether, but happy to talk Giga in any way, shape, or form. Eduardo is killing it on the transformer side, so he can help you get taken care of there. Transformers are definitely a topic of conversation just because they're so hard to get a hold of in a reasonable lead time. Yeah. The hydro solution has been a really interesting bit of traffic from a lot of people. I don't know if you saw Mara's announcement in Finland is a hydro solution where they're doing the heating for the town, right? We've definitely gotten some interest in an immersion solution, but we're just not there to offer that. Not to say that we won't, just it's not something that we're offering right now. And then the air boxes are kind of like our Giga air box is pretty much our bread and butter of just day to day. Like if you want a reliable air cooled mining container that you can get in 6 to 8 weeks, give us a shout, because we can do it, and it's going to be what you expect.
Is that the best seller, you'd say, at this moment? Is just the air-cooled solution still? People are still going for it. Okay.
Certainly.
Yeah, because that debate's always there, right? But seems like air is still the easiest to deploy if you're really taking it that way. So,
And again, shameless shill, like we do a lot of the work for you. Like the network switches are pre-run, the Ethernet wire is run. All you have to do is set it down and terminate. Now, like there's some components to that where like we want to help you make the right decisions as a client, because if you put it in the wrong direction, you put it too close to your other boxes, you put it too close to a wall, and your intake is restricted. There's a bunch of like nuance there that we can help to kind of guide our clients on. But it's definitely the easiest way to spin up a megawatt of Bitcoin.
For that transformer market, do you think you guys are going to see people outside of the industry start pulling on you for that, or have you seen that already? People in traditional,
absolutely. And that's honestly a stated objective of our team. It's not like diversify, it's like increase the number of dollars we can convert into Bitcoin, basically.
Gotcha. Interesting. I do wonder how, I have no knowledge of this market at all, so take that as like some context for this question. How easy is it to enter that market and start arbitraging away the cost of moving and sourcing transformers in China and bringing them to the US? Is that a game you guys expect to be like pretty easy to keep pushing because you have that connection? Or do you think like over the next 2 or 3 years that arbitrage, and I'm going to keep using that word even though it's for trading, play out?
It's exactly what it's a geographical arbitrage right there. I mean, that's what we're exploiting right now. I mean, I think it'd be naive to think that market doesn't have some competition come up. But while it's here, we're happy to establish a brand where we also have established team members in the States who can support if anything were to go wrong, because obviously there's going to be concerns about anything being imported where there's like cars saw this. My dad was a Ford dealer for a long time, and he would talk about made in America, and you open the hood and there's a bunch of stuff from made in wherever. And so like that perception is gonna kind of lag for a while, but like almost everything is made in China. Like, so like while we're going through that transitional phase of like transformer made in China, we have a team here on the ground. Like I said, we have 25 full-time employees in the States, ready to support any of that, because that's what's required. Reputation goes a long way in this business. It's a small world, and we don't want to leave anyone with a sour taste in their mouth after working with Giga.
Definitely. And I do think there's a kind of cool angle here where you're talking about like you guys are supporting data center infrastructure that can also bleed into like traditional utilities or other like heavy manufacturing, and you guys have the ability to sell them, but then you're a Bitcoin company. And that's like part of like the whole Bitcoin story with energy companies, where we talked about like Shell and these big energy companies coming into Bitcoin a few years ago, and like it kind of happened. But I think like this story actually like plays into a little more, where Giga is a Bitcoin company eating into the energy industry and eating into the utility field, the manufacturing side, just because like that's where the market is. And the last point on that would be like, it's great for miners to be diversifying revenue that way. Like we're seeing with HPC and AI, where, you know, why not just steady out your revenue over the next few years instead of just mining Bitcoin? Mining Bitcoin might be more lucrative long-term if we are as bullish as we are, but there's that. That's the last question I actually want to end things on is with you is like, are you seeing anyone in the AI HPC space jump into this a little more, or like contact you guys about modular solutions for the field? We had the announcement from Crusoe in Data Center World yesterday, I believe, where they just announced, hey, we're like completely focused on AI HPC. Crusoe is a competitor of your guys in the sense that they're also building containers and container software, things like that. So I am curious though, of like just from someone working in the industry and working in that subsector, are people like really contacting you guys and things flying off the shelf yet, or is it too early for them to jump to modular stuff yet?
So I think we've found an entry point for HPC that we're comfortable with, because with any business growth, you want it to be at least somewhat organic. You want it to be rational. And so we found a product offering that is at least adjacent to something that we're already comfortable with, and that's chillers. So dry coolers was a solution for direct to chip or immersion. Chillers actually goes a step further than cooling, than just blowing air over the radiator fins. Chillers actually introduce like a vapor compression refrigeration cycle like you have in your refrigerator, water cooler, whatever. They actually use that to chill the fluid that you're using to chill your HPC. So that's something that we're kind of dipping our toe in the water here, and it's kind of our first venture into that space, because the infrastructure required for HPC for the higher level data centers, it's definitely not. Let's just say it's not as grimy as an air cooled container or an immersion container or whatever. Like the requirements are a little bit steeper, and so while we have aspirations to potentially offer that, it's not something that, like, at this moment we're actively penetrating right now.
Well, cool, Matt. Thanks for joining the pod. Where can people find you and find Giga?
So I am TDR_M Lusto. I wrote for the Daily Reveille at LSU. Holy cow, that's a long time ago. GigaEnergy.com is our website. Happy to chat Giga, transformers, air-cooled containers, off-grid mining, whatever you want to talk about. Happy to talk about it. Hit me on Twitter and get in touch. And then I think our Twitter handle is Giga Energy or something like that. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Cool. Well, Matt, great to see you again. We'll see you in Nashville, and say hey to the Giga team for us.
Certainly will. Thanks for having me, Will.